Hey, this is Craig. If you like this show and you want to support it and you want to keep it free, head on over to everyonelovesguitar.com/support. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/support. If you're a business owner and you want to increase your cash flow, or if you're a label or artist and you want to promote new music, then listen up. For information about advertising on Everyone Loves Guitar, including information on geographically targeted ads, go to everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. If you want to buy or sell a home or investment property and you're here in the Tampa Bay area, in Hillsborough, Pinellas, or Pasco counties, then listen up. West Florida Real Estate is a local residential real estate broker that's helped over 250 Bay Area homeowners buy and sell their properties in the last 4 years alone. If you're looking to sell, you'll want to get their free report, The 7 Biggest Mistakes Homeowners Make When Hiring a Realtor. And if you're looking to buy a property, you definitely want to get your hands on the 21 Most Expensive Mistakes Tampa Home Buyers Make When Buying a Home. Each one of these reports is going to save you time and money. Inside, you'll discover the 7 most important things to consider when hiring a realtor, what to do if you're buying and selling a home at the same time, and the danger of choosing a realtor who agrees with everything you say. To get your hands on these free reports, head on over to westfloridarealestate.com. That's westfloridarealestate.com. Hey, everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. Man, we got a great guitarist. I've been so excited to talk with Chan Kinchla because I listened to a ton of his music growing up, and he's one of the best guitar players around. I don't know why his name isn't on, like, the popular list, but Chan's from Blues Traveler, a founding member and a soul guitar player, and man, he has just kicked ass for many, many years. Originally from Ontario, Canada, he's the one of the founding members of Blues Traveler, along with John Popper and Brendan Hill. He's been touring with Blues Traveler full time for over
32 years.
Dude, that's like a miracle. It's like
it's fun. It's been fun. I'll tell you what. I mean, a few bumps along the way.
Hey, man, who doesn't have 32 years? You have a few bumps with anybody, man. And Blues Traveler's got 13 studio and 3 live albums. And Chan is the tallest man I have interviewed. You say he's 6'5"?
Yeah, 6'5". Tallest, yeah. Well, John's 6'4", 6'3.5". Brendan's 6 feet. Bobby was like 6'1", 6'2", and then the new guys are both over 6 feet. So
wow,
we don't really fit the mold of the most bands.
Yeah.
When people meet them, they're tiny. Yes. I don't know what it is, but
is that a rule? Like you had to be 6 feet?
I think it has to do with, it takes a certain kind of wanting to put yourself out there. And I think smaller people need to kind of emote a little more or something. I don't know, overcompensate. But we were always the biggest band in rock and roll. I will say that from the get-go. Cool.
And literally, look at all those damn gold and platinum records behind you, man. So that's awesome. Congratulations.
The 90s. What a glorious era.
Hey, man, you guys got together in Jersey, and you spent a lot of time early on playing clubs in the city, especially in the Lower East Side. I'm a few years older than you, but I'm from the city, so I'm very familiar with that scene. I would love to hear you talk about some of the places you played and to hear what it was like back then from your perspective of someone in it.
Wow. I can talk about that stuff forever. So listen, it was late 80s, 87. And we were a high school band. So this started 86, and we would start going up even in high school. We started going up. John had gone up to the city a year previous, and he had started at the New School, which the time, the jazz program there was just with Arnie Lawrence, who's passed away, God rest his soul, had just started this jazz program with the New School, which has gone on to become a very famous music academy. So he had gone up there and started there, and we used to come up and do little talent nights, little bar gigs, whatever we could do. Generally what they do is they'd have open mic nights all around town at that point, and we would come in as a band, which you're not really supposed to do, and kind of just take over for 3 songs. But at the time we're in bars, and we're 16, 17, 18 years old. But because it was New York City in the 80s, nobody gave a
yeah.
So that was kind of the stepping stone. And as soon as we graduated, literally June in 1987, we all moved up to New York, lived in a squat in in a shithole in Fort Greene, in not a squat, but a little railroad apartment in Brooklyn. In Fort Greene, Brooklyn, which, you know, at the time, Brooklyn was not anything like what it is now. It was all we could afford.
That was a war zone then.
And we lived right between the Fort Greene Hotel, which was like a welfare hotel, and the Fort Greene projects. We were literally a block in between them. And it was, if you remember that glorious time of the 80s, it was right when the crack epidemic hit.
I was just about to say, yeah.
There were kids on the corner. The fun thing is, and we lived in a black neighborhood. One of our roommates at the time was black too, so it's probably helped. But we were broke ass musicians living in New York. We had jack shit, just some crappy guitars and shitty amps. I mean, it was nothing. And all the guys in the corner, I think, just got a kick out of us. Like, what the fuck are these white boys doing in Brooklyn? So, you know, we didn't ever get too much flack. I mean, you know, we didn't have much, and, you know, we would occasionally partake of their wares. So, you know, we were all good in the hood. There was a little bodega that sold little weed bags, and we wanted to get naughty. We could get into the 80s thing. But the great thing at that point is right around 86, 87 in the Lower East Side and all over New York, there was a thing called the cabaret law up until that point, which you're probably familiar with. But you needed a special license to have more than 3 musicians on stage. And in 1987, they lifted that law, which meant every little bar in the Lower East Side could have bands, whatever bands they wanted. So basically, every bar just threw a stage in the corner. And all over the Lower East Side, there were gigs for crap money, almost no money. But at the time, there was a bunch of really cool bands that were just starting up. There were kind of bands called The Worms, Mr. Thing, Joey, Simon Chartier or Joey Miserable. There's this really great, the Surreal McCoys, really great little circuit of great bar bands that were playing this whole little circuit. And we kind of tapped into that. We go see them every night. And then eventually those clubs would give us Mondays, Monday nights. And we would just play on Monday nights at the Nightingale, which was the kind of the home that started the Traveler, for 4 people. But, you know, the guy, Tom, who ran the place, gave us, and we're literally 18 years old playing in a bar, basically for beer money, like it's the Blues Brothers, till from like 10 till 4 a.m. So,
holy shit.
And still popping into talent nights and, you know, getting yelled at by the Dan Lynch next door, which was a blues bar.
Yeah, the blues bar. Sure. I remember that.
But we would come in and play, you know, our weird hybrid mash of rock and roll blues and whatever. And we once got shut down there. So then we were playing Nightingale. There's no one showing up. So our whole gig was like, how do we get people to come to our shows? No one in New York knows us. So what we started doing is throwing our own gigs at this place called the Lismore Lounge, which was the diviest dive right on First Avenue and Avenue A and First Street, way down there. And at the time, Alphabet City was a no-go. Like if you went past First Avenue, towards the east, it was all, I mean, this is like during the all the Tompkins Square Park riots and all the squatters, and the Tompkins Square Park itself was like, it was like a post-apocalyptic you know, campsite. People were like keeping warm over gas, you know, trash cans, and, you know, there were squatters everywhere. And then these riots would roll through every 3 or 4 months because they were trying to move people out of their squats where they had taken over all these abandoned buildings, basically. So it was crazy over there. So what we would do is we got this gig at the Lismore Lounge and went to all the universities in the area, NYU, the New School, Parsons School of Design, where various of us at that point had friends. And one of our buddies was a drug dealer. So what we did is we made mushroom tea and had nitrous tanks, rolled cheap joints.
Nitrous tanks. I haven't heard
dollar drafts. And we would put on our flyers, we'd hand them out everywhere, and we'd basically advertise free drugs.
Right.
Because we could get them super cheap from our drug dealer friend. And that unsurprisingly, those 3 or 4 gigs we did like that were packed.
Wow.
So that kind of created a little buzz. I mean, we had to be, I guess, all right once we were there, but those are our first.
Open the door.
Those are our first gigs with a crowd. And, you know, we were playing in the Lower East Side. These are all Lower East Side school kids, you know, college kids. So they're always looking for stuff to do. So that really kind of started some kind of scene for us down there. And literally we would play, you know, 4 or 5 nights in a week down to the Lower East Side for that second year. The first year was bleak. The first year we didn't have much of anything going on. But by 88, this is 87 when we first moved there. By 88, we had a little thing going. And then once you would get some numbers in the Lower East Side, some of the cooler, more established clubs in Bleecker Street started giving us nights, and it was always the Mondays and Tuesdays. But eventually,
like Bottom Line or Bitter End and places like that.
Mondo Cane and Mondo Perso.
Sure.
Those are the ones. That, I mean, we played Kenny's Castaways.
Castaways, sure, man.
Kenny's Castaways famously. We were playing there, and we were playing two sets. And after our first, we had been playing there a little bit, but this was like a real gig there. And Kenny, who owns it, saw us, and he told us, I'll pay you. Don't come back for the second set.
Oh, my God.
He told his son, he's like, those guys are never going anywhere.
Why?
He didn't like us. Because we were like scruffy and had ripped jeans. I mean, we were literally.
I mean, people aren't playing.
We were this far from homeless. It was all we did was drive around a gig and crash at people's houses. You know, but, you know, you're 19 and 20 in New York City, it was the best.
Yeah.
But it was rough living for sure. So we looked it, but we were the real deal, you know?
Yeah.
And slowly but surely, we just became, you know, the bar band in New York City. And then Wetlands came around, and that was kind of our step into a more established club. But all of that happened. And then by that point, when you're, you know, selling out, you know, packing everywhere you go. I mean, we would play at Nightingale, which is like a little 300-seat club. And there'd be like 400 people outside. It was like a little mini Madison Square Garden dead show.
That's so cool, man.
So once that started happening, record companies came sniffing around. And literally, you know, it took us like 2 years to kind of hash through it. But right after 2 years, in 1989, we got signed to A&M. What
a great story, man.
Yeah, it was a fun time. It's a fun time.
It's so funny because people often don't. It's a fun time looking back, but day by day, you know, it's not easy to do that.
No, we were fighting over Cheetos. I mean, literally.
Yeah, I get it.
There was no food. I had a trick called the deli circuit, and back then it's, you know, they had all these little delis. This is in Brooklyn. And what you have to do is you have to go into like 4 different delis and buy sandwiches, cheap $2 sandwiches. And then when you're out of money, you go borrow one, you get a free sandwich, you get a sandwich like, can I just, because I've come a few times, can I pay you next time?
Yeah.
And then you got to go around the circuit getting free sandwiches until somehow you get some money up, and then you can go back and pay them back. But
yeah.
I mean, to get a meal every day was, you know, it was tricky, but it was a great diet. We looked good.
What was your favorite club to play in the city?
Well, the one closest to my heart is Nightingale, because it was just such a dive. Great thing about Nightingale is I mentioned all these other bands that we had begun with, that we begun kind of idolizing, and then they would let us open up. We really learned through watching them how to work a crowd, how to keep things loose, but make sure it's tight at the same time. Because when you're playing bar gigs, and you know, you want a kind of casual nature to it.
Yeah. Because
it can't be super stiff, but you know, in the end, it's got to rock. So we kind of started watching them, and then slowly but surely we'd get the later in the weeknights. And they, you know, we were balls to the wall going after it. So they eventually, after pushing us around a little bit, just kind of respected where we were coming from. But we were all play all these different clubs, and the Nightingale would let musicians stash their gear in the back. So literally, like, the back quarter of the club was just piled high. Because when you're playing all these little bar gigs, you don't think of it. where's everyone going to keep their gear? You can't just cart it back and climb up, fourth floor walk up and stick it in there, where your apartment is, and bring it down every night. So all the musicians would come back at like 2 or 3 in the morning and stash their gear there and kind of compare notes from their gigs for the night. So
that's cool.
It was a great vibe, 2 a.m. Lower East Side, just, all these great musicians and friends kind of meeting up and seeing what the night brought. So those are, I was just gassed. I was this kid hanging out with all these cool people, all these great musicians I really respected. I mean, I think we all felt this way. So that obviously has a very special place in my heart.
Yeah.
The space is still there now. It's gone through a few different transmogrifications, and now it's like a loungy. Oh no, I think they turned into an Irish bar.
Oh, did they? Yeah.
And same with Mondo Perso, which is next door. It's like a chainy kind of tourist bar. And then, I mean, these starter club like Mondo Cane, which was run by this guy Adolf and was actually owned by the mob. They didn't want us to play there because we were so scruffy, and we didn't play blues. But Adolf told them, I'm booking here. He's this little gay South African guy, and he stood up to these 3 mobsters who were like giving him shit about it. And they had the cutest waitresses. So I mean, that was a great time. We played 4 sets there, and Adolf would take us out to dinner, and at the breakfast, after all of us at the breakfast, have all these great parties on his apartment roof. It was the full Lower East Side experience. And then, kind of our heyday in New York before we got a record deal, started going nationally, was Wetlands, where things really got pretty big. Although we're talking like a 400-seat capacity, but it was like a real club.
Definitely.
And that's when, we had this huge posse of great people. And one great gig we played in New York was Prospect Park in Brooklyn. We had a couple different friends, but one of the guys, this guy Roger, who played flute with us sometimes, he was an electrician. So we just showed up at the shell there, and he popped off a light post, and we ran a whole show. We just threw a show at the Prospect Park band shell right off a light post because we didn't have permits or anything. I don't know how we managed to think it would work, but we all showed up there and threw a big gig in Prospect Park. And I think nobody thought to ask if this was arranged or permitted or anything. I mean, that's the kind of shit we were doing all the time.
That's cool.
We really didn't give a fuck, and we'd try anything. And sometimes total disasters would ensue, but sometimes it was magical. It was a good time.
Cool. Very cool. A couple of bands that come to mind that were around that era. Just curious if you knew those guys. Michael Hill's Blues Mob.
Sure, they were kind of part of that.
Yeah,
that little world we were in, for sure.
Yeah.
We bumped into them. They wasn't close to them, but
yeah,
I'm sure I met them.
And then Agent Orange.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember them as well.
So Chris, the guitar player, he plays at Bush now. He's been with Bush for quite some time. Yeah, he's a good guy. Cool. So funny, man.
Yeah, I mean, there were so many great musicians back in New York. It was cheap. You could live in the Lower East Side or Brooklyn for cheap. And there were so many places to play. And, you could play till 4 a.m. and no one complained. So it was a vibrant Lower East Side lifestyle at that point.
It's weird. You go there now, it's like totally different. And it's kind of sad in a way. It's nice. It's a little safer, but it's like.
For sure. For grown-ups, it's nice.
Yeah. For grown-ups, it's nicer.
For like as a cauldron for like art. And I mean, so get this. This is this whole scene. Playing in that scene was us, the Spin Doctors, Chris Whitley.
Wow.
And Joan Osborne. We were all playing, and all 4 of those. I mean, it's a scene that's not really talked about, the late '80s New York scene, because we were all playing all these little clubs, and all 4 of them got signed. All 4 of us got signed and had big hits on the radio and real careers. So, I mean, a lot of people went big time out of that little scene, though it was such a eclectic musical scene, and it was kind of roots R&B, but blues and rock. So I don't think it had the kind of the cachet of something that kind of created a new music or a type of scene. But
it was a great scene.
It was all very music based.
Yeah.
Like playing good solos, improvisation, songwriting. So it was a great scene to be a part of. And like I said, there was some really big acts made it out of there.
Very cool, man. Thank you for sharing. That was a good hear.
Sure.
90 to 93, you put out your first 3 records: Blues Traveler, Travelers and Thieves, and my favorite, Save His Soul. Great.
That's a lot of fan favorite. Save His Soul is kind
of.
Is
it real? I love that record, man. I mean, they're all
it's a
good,
cool
man.
record.
Oh,
it's a cool record.
Yeah, there's some.
I think that's my favorite too. If pressed musically, it's got a lot of. A
lot of muscle on there, man.
Yeah, that's it. A lot of muscle is very. So yeah, I mean that was the era. So we get signed. We're the Kings of New York, and just the shit. All have like hot girlfriends and
it's funny what
we can walk into any club or place, and we got the seas parted because we're like the kings of Lower East Side. In New York, this is New York. It always happens, but you only get it for like a year or two, and then they're like, move along, kid. Got to make room for the next guy. No one knows me in New York anymore, trust me. But and then we get signed, and then you're off to touring the country in a beat-up van to like 4 people at the Continental Club in Austin, where you've been driving for 12 hours. You get out, you play the gig, finish up, get back in the car, and keep rolling because it's, So once we got signed, it was we just got a couple of vans and just hit the country and toured. And in between that, we put these records together. So those records kind of have a lot of the kind of adventure and the kind of edge of how hard we were touring and what we were all up against. We were very balls to the wall at that point, which is why I like listening to them.
Yeah, all 3 records go gold though. How like
they didn't go gold. They didn't go gold until 4.
Oh, until 4 popped. Okay.
Yeah, and then everyone went back to the catalog.
Okay.
Blues Traveler actually went gold right before 4 went gold. So
okay.
Blues Traveler is our first record, and that had actually been around long enough, and we'd had this kind of underground scene. So that had slowly but surely started building up. But
okay.
Back then, a record company, and I got to give credit to A&M, they really, and we were pretty low maintenance because we were touring on our own and we were, fairly self-sufficient other than they bailed us out of a few financial disasters when we, one of our first tours, once we got a tour bus, it's probably 92, we,
from a van, like stepped up from a van.
Yeah, well, we did 3 years in the vans all over the country, circled the country in vans. We're 20 years old. Who cares? I mean, everyone had their bench, but we got to a tour bus, which was heaven. Once I got in the tour bus, I knew I was good for life. I still love the tour bus more than anything. I mean, that's my favorite part of tour, honestly. But
it's funny.
As soon as we got any kind of, go ahead.
No, I saw some photo of you. This is really funny that you said that. I saw some photo of you maybe on Facebook, and you're standing in front of a tour bus and you looked happy. You looked so happy. You had this big smile. I'm like, God, that's really funny. He's like, just in front of it. And you were like, I think maybe putting up something, but you just.
Oh, you know what? I think I was flipping my fingers off because I was at a tour bus in front of the Wrigley Field sign.
Right. In front of
not Wrigley Field. Sorry. Fenway. I was in front of Fenway.
Yeah, fuck the Red Sox.
I was like, fuck the Red Sox.
Yeah, that's what you know what, man? That's what I thought you were doing, but you just looked so happy there. I was like, God.
Yeah.
Like,
I think fuck the Red Sox makes me happy. Love you, Boston. Love you. Anyone from that area knows how good the rivalry is.
Man. Of course.
But so as soon as we got one tour bus, we very soon got a semi and 2 tour buses. Because the guy who was our tour manager was one of our buddies from Princeton. And we would just lease these things out. And we went on tour with all our friends, 2 tour buses, a semi, like a light show. And we're selling out all these little 800-seat clubs, but that doesn't pay for. So we got in the hole quick. And A&M, we're going back to A&M. A&M was cool enough at that point to pay off that debt and just put it on our tab with A&M, which is but to A&M's credit, Blues Traveler, Travelers and Thieves and Save a Soul didn't sell blockbusters, but they gave us great budgets for those. They promoted them to a varying degree, but they got behind them and never like wavered on developing us as an act, which I don't know if a major record label's going to go 3 albums in.
Oh, no.
They get
now?
hit.
Hell no.
And they had great, you know, and the people we had been working with trying to promote the last records we got to be friends with, those people stayed with the company. So by the time we got to 4 in 95, we knew everybody. There's a trust level, and, you know, we were kind of ready to make that record. So I got to give credit for A&M for being a real record label, which, you know, there's a few good stories these days, but
that's good.
You know, it was a good example of what the 90s can bring, what the record companies back then used to do.
It's, honestly, I've had maybe 550 people on the show. I think that's the first, maybe the second good story about record labels.
Well, I mean, sure, at the time we complained about every little thing. It's easy to do, and you know, in the meta of the whole thing, the record companies, the contracts is horrible that they would sign.
Right.
But, you know, for us, I don't think we ever would have reached the level of success we had album sales wise with 4, and we got to play on Saturday Night Live and done all that cool, fun, you know, top 40 shit.
Yeah.
Without them. So it was a really fun ride with them. I'm sure we could have done pretty well in today's market, but it would have been definitely a different path.
Totally.
So, you know, there's some bad stories about the record company, but looking back, compared to what I see now, it seems like they did their job.
Yeah, for sure.
And I still have friends from the company to this day that I see
That's
here
great.
and there.
So let's talk about 4. 94 comes, you put out 4, it goes to number 8 on the charts, sells 6 million copies, and you get a Grammy in 95 for Runaround. A few questions. 3 biggest changes that happened after that record blew up, good or bad?
Well, I mean, it was really funny because all our records would come out in the past, and they'd put out a single, and we'd be talking about, you know, we're going to put out this first, and then the second single we really wanted to get to. But they put out the one they wanted. So there was always a kerfuffle about, you know, picking the single. And so this one, they really wanted Runaround right off the bat. And we're like, no, you always do this song you want, and then you give up on the record. So we got them the promise to wait on Runaround, and they released Hook, so the record came out in 94, late 94,
yeah.
The fall of 94. And Hook came out, and we were big at college radio as always, and it sold a couple 100,000 copies as always. But it was kind of following a similar trajectory to our last one. And then Runaround came out in January or something of that next of 95. And literally, like a week after it came out, the record had fallen off the charts. The record came back on the charts and proceeded for that whole next year to just fly up the charts. And it sat in the top 10 for like 4 months.
Wow.
I think we actually had, that was Runaround was in the top 10 singles for as long as any single in history, strangely. It was just,
that's awesome.
It didn't get to number 1, but it just had legs. Now, we were touring with bands like Widespread and Fish and doing Horde, and we were kind of on the similar trajectory, doing this kind of more underground do-it-yourself thing.
Like with the jam band scene, kind of.
Right.
Yeah.
It was us, Fish, and Widespread. That was the jam bands.
And you're all 3 still around. What are the chances of that?
And we used to play together with them.
That's wild.
Way back in 90, we do co-bills. That's kind of where Horde came from, is we were doing these co-bills together, and we're like, we should put together a package. And Widespread and Aquarium Rescue Unit was kind of the godfather of all those. We all idolized them. So Horde kind of came about from playing with those guys. But in any case, so we were kind of on a similar trajectory. I mean, albums weren't great, but we were doing great numbers. And we had this great fan base. And then 4 hit, sold a ton of records, did all this more. We were on top. We were in the, top 40 radio, like Kiss FM and which was just to us hilarious. A bunch of the scruffy hippies with these big mega hits. So the interesting thing is that was great ride, but at the same time, it brought in a whole fan base that had no idea about the history. They weren't real hardcore concert goers. So there was a definite clash of cultures between those two elements, which I think scared off some of our old fans. And so I think in some ways it kind of impeded our route to becoming like a pure jam band creation.
Right.
But in other ways opened up so many doors that, we used to say which one was better or better for us long term. But I think at that time, there was a big clash of cultures, which, I think was hard for some people. We were just enjoying the ride at the time. Boy, were we. I got to say, through all of this, me and Bobby, the first bass player, were having a blast.
You were just like a kid at that time.
Yeah.
Did you have the coping skills to handle what I gotta believe was like just fucking massive increase in exposure and demand on you?
I mean, when you're so young, because this all happened when I was probably 25. We were all about 25. And we had been touring hard for 5 years, 6 years leading up into it. So luckily, right around that time, I kind of settled down with my ex now, but still, and had a kid very soon thereafter. So I think that helped ground me a little bit, because obviously Bobby passed away not too long thereafter of a drug overdose.
Sure.
So there was a lot of coping going on, one way or the other.
Right.
And we weren't healthy for sure in that era, but at the same time, you got to kind of grab the bull by the horns and see where it takes you. Grab the tiger by the tail.
Yeah, man. And you somehow made it through.
And I just turned 50, and the first thing I thought about on the day I turned 50, I'm not really big on birthdays, but I actually thought about all my friends that hadn't really made it. Because there's, I've got a long list of good friends, starting with Bobby Sheehan,
right?
Who and Tim Vega, one of original artists who did a lot of art for all these albums and T-shirts.
He died of drugs as well.
He died of a drug overdose.
Oh,
but there's a long list.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the first thing of all those friends of mine. A good friend that was in the early scene died of a drunk driving accident. Just drove in the woods, whatever. So, it's sobering.
Interesting word.
Did I use that right? It's sobering, but I mean, that's the main thing I thought back about it is, and I'm just very thankful that we managed to keep the band together. That I get to play with this great band, and for family and friends, and just to still be here, because rock and roll, I think, is a pretty dangerous profession, as the tale of the tape shows.
Yeah, man.
And self-inflicted, but still.
Oh, but it
is what it is. People go down.
You put drugs and alcohol in front of young kids who are up at 3 a.m. with, hundreds of other young kids doing the same thing. It's like, it's a recipe for danger.
And it's expected and facilitated. I mean, what other job do you show up for work and there's like bottles of whiskey and, it's fine if you do a bump and to have a drink at 3 p.m. or 10 a.m.
Sure.
People are like, they're the band. You get away with murder.
Yeah.
But and I guess it ends up coming back at you as well.
Talk about we talked before we started recording. When with you and John, you go back and listen to these records. There's something. I hate to sound cheesy, but there is something, to use this word, magical that you guys have together. It's almost like, the married couple that they finish each other's sentences.
Yeah.
But you're doing it musically. And I don't mean to be cheesy, because that's literally what it is with you guys.
Well, I mean, like all great bands that have been around a lot, especially improvisational bands, which is what we are partly that. And as we were speaking of before, we started playing together in high school, me, Brendan, and John. And I think that was even with Bobby, when Bobby was a bass player. Now my brother's a bass player who I've been playing with forever as well. So we still have that aspect. we learned how to play together. We moved into New York and played little bars together. So all our musical perspective comes with the other person kind of included. So I think we just learned together. So I think that this happens with a lot of bands that have played together for a long time. That's how they kind of create their very individual sound.
But it's uncanny though, because like one of you will finish a solo and literally there's no breath between the end note of, whoever's soloing and the downbeat of the other guy. And that's really, I mean, not a fucking space.
We played a lot of solos together.
I know, man. Pretty magical.
I'm always thinking, there's so many other bands that are so much tighter than us, but
I don't know about that. You think so? There's so many other bands tighter?
Well, we don't want to be too tight because it's a rock and roll band. You need a little hair around the edges and some of the happy accidents and some of the train wrecks and some of the kind of loose emotional playing, I think helps make it a good rock, makes any band a good rock band. So
absolutely.
But, something I think when we started out, we were all energy. We played super hard, in your face. We were going to punch you in the face was kind of our mindset.
Right.
As you get older, I think you start to relax a little bit and you're looking for other things in music. And I think we're probably a little more, we listen a little better. We play off each other a little better. But we don't quite have the balls to the wall energy that we did, but who can? Our 20s, we were very aggressive, but you got to chill as you get a little older. No one wants to see a 50-year-old just slamming their head against the wall.
No, but
it's
let me
fun
ask
when
you
you're 20.
Talk about energy. So you got a pretty high energy level now, much higher than most guys, our age. Do you like?
I think it's coffee.
Could be, man. But did you do anything like take care of yourself better, or like? Because I gotta believe
it really depends. I've been home for a while. I think once you get on tour, you kind of lower the energy level during the day so you can ramp it up at night.
Right.
I haven't drank or partied in a year, so that always helps.
Is that deliberate?
As I was turning, yes, on purpose. As I was getting towards 50, I realized that the 35-year run I had was a pretty good effort. I think I've done my part for God and country. And
country.
I felt like, 35 years of going hard. I mean, I had a few breaks in there, but not really. If I wanted to enjoy my 50s, I couldn't party like I was. So I kind of toned it down. But,
pretty cool.
I've been a performer all my life. So if you put me on, I'm going to perk up.
Right. No, but as soon as like the set, but you know what I mean? Like there's an energy level people have. I don't mean like running or, that someone has when you talk to them and it's extremely distinct when you talk to someone who's got a low energy level,
sure.
And, and like right away from the first second, I was like, fuck, this guy's on, like, which is great.
This is all natural, man. All natural.
Great. But I like that, man, because it's like, because when you have more energy, then I'm going to be like, yeah, man, let's fucking do it. It's really hard when you're talking to someone that's like,
oh, of course.
It's almost like it's sort of like depressing because that's what, feed any kind of synergy you're going to have, man.
It's fun. Like I said, I've been doing this since I've been a kid. So like I said, once I get involved in something, my energy level goes up. You should see me during the day on tour though. I'm like so chill. Unless, unless somebody brings up a subject that animates me and then we can get into it. It's the Jersey in me. Maybe that, what you're feeling? The Jersey.
You know what, man? You know what? You're right. Because this is what happens all the time. People have emailed me and say, man, what is it when you have these New York guys on? You guys have this thing. It's like, I can't explain it, but you both I said, yeah, man, it's the
Jersey. That is right. Because I live out here in California, in LA. I've been out here 20 years now. And, everyone's friendly out here and easygoing, and I love that about it. But, they're also very closed off. Like, they don't share a lot. It's all very surface. And like I said, sometimes that's nice. But they'll ask questions sometimes, like, how you doing? And you'll actually start getting into it. Like, things about your day, and they're like, "Whoa, way too much information." But
no, I didn't mean how you doing. I just.
But
meant,
I find, or like, you trade a little insult with somebody, and they're like, at first, like, "Does he mean that?" I'm like, "No, I'm just getting to know you." You can learn more by busting someone's balls and seeing how they react.
Sure.
Than you can being nice. But
that's funny, man.
So I think that's what the energy level is. Jersey,
okay,
home of the brave.
There you go, man. That's what it is. That's Warren Haynes played on several of you guys' records. How did that connection come about?
Well, this is a great story, a little thread. We were like at this glory time in New York when we were kind of the shit in New York City. We had we were playing all over, and we were starting to do. A lot of our friends were at college, so we were playing frat parties all in the area, and then they pay a lot better too. So we started circling out, doing this whole circuit of frats at like Cornell and down in Philly, and just at Rider College, at just all these universities all around where our friends were, Dartmouth. In any case, we got this gig up at Columbia University, which is up in Harlem for those that aren't from the city. And we have to play this frat, and David Graham, the famous impresario's son, David Graham, Bill Graham's son.
Bill Graham's son. Yeah.
Bill Deej, affectionately known as Deej, was going there, and we were opening up for the band that he was kind of affiliated with at the time, but we just blew him off the map because at that point we were en fuego. Like literally, we were so out of our minds. But some would say dicks. But listen, when we were playing these little bars, sometimes mobsters would try not to pay you, and we had guns pulled on us because me and John were trying to kind of play the big guy card and trying to get paid.
Sure.
I mean, we were coming out of where you put it, you had the front, you had to flex all the time, or you get pushed around. So
that's New York, man.
Yeah, so that's kind of was our attitude at the time. Anyway, we really impressed him. So Deej went to his dad, Bill, and said, "I really want to manage this band." Deej was about to graduate and wanted to get into management. So lo and behold, within a couple months, Bill Graham's our manager, and that kind of, and we were like 19, 20 years old, getting screamed at by Bill Graham for stage diving, which is because he's like, "You kicked the girl in the face, you motherfucker."
You sounded just like him when you did that.
Yeah. So we, but to have such a direct line to the history of rock and roll, and he would tell us stories. But so what he did is he put us on tour for 2 summers, opening up for the Allman Brothers all summer long.
Crap.
Which is is like master class.
My God.
You can imagine. And that was with Dickie, with Greg, with the original band, and Warren Haynes was the other guitar player.
And Alan Woody was with them.
Alan Woody was the bass player. So we got to be good friends with them, and Warren would sometimes sit in with us. And
oh, cool.
So we had kind of established a relationship with him through that. And he was kind of up and coming at the time as well with Government Mule. And so, when we were doing 4, we were just looking for fun things to do. And we were in touch with him a lot. And actually, the percussionist for the Allman Brothers at the time.
JMO?
No, not JMO. They had
the Spanish guy?
Yeah.
Mark.
Oh, fuck. I'm spacing his name. I just knew it because I was just thinking of it a couple days ago. It'll pop into my head at some point. In any case, he's playing the percussion on Runaround.
Okay.
So, that's all him. In any case, we were kind of friendly with them. And so that's kind of where that relationship came with. But the main part of that story is, we came out of this great local bar band scene with all these great musicians, older guys, and landed right in with Bill Graham, who kind of put us on with all these kind of legends. We got to open up for Carlos a bunch of times.
Holy
sitting with us.
Shit.
I got to trade licks with Carlos Santana. All
what
this
was that like?
20 years old. Mind-blowing. And Greg came in and played on, sang and played keyboards on Save a Soul on Mountain Cry.
Wow.
That's Greg Allman. So those were great connections to make and great school for us.
Yeah.
Starting out. And we got to actually kind of touch the wellspring from where all this jam music came from.
Was Bill your manager until he passed?
Yes, he was. He was.
Wow.
It was a dark day. It was a dark day. Wow.
That's amazing, man. What would you say, if you could even answer this, top 3 experiences you've had musically?
Trading licks with Carlos Santana. I would definitely say that was a mind-numbing, in Golden Gate Park of all places.
Oh man.
So it's a funny thing about that is he came, and then I think Bill went and asked him to sit in, and he was like, sure. It was at some kind of festival we were doing there. But he didn't have a guitar or amp, so he played through one of my guitars and through one of our backup amps, or some amp they got him. Still sounded exactly like Carlos. It's not the gear.
Right.
It's not the gear. So that was a highlight. In Golden Gate Park, playing with Carlos Santana was mind-blowing. We sold out Madison Square Garden. That was a huge
How did that feel, man? That
achievement.
had to feel great.
Growing up as a kid, that's the Mecca. It still is. And being a New York band, that was kind of a cherry on top for that whole era. It's just those little cornerstones. When people ask you some of your highlights, it's definitely selling out the Garden. Any band would say that, even
oh my gosh,
let alone a New York band.
Yeah.
That's the Mecca.
I have got that answer before, actually, several times.
Exactly. That's what I say for any band. And we're a New York band.
Right.
I mean, we would go to see the Dead shows there when they used to do those whole court with the 7 nights at the Garden. We'd go to like 8 of them. We'd sell nitrous balloons once again outside. We'd walk around these big balloons, and our friend was in the parking lot.
Gotta be a hustler, man.
That was the kid, the drug dealer friend of ours. Yeah. That's $5 a balloon. We did a lot of them too. But so Madison Square Garden, that was, and then I think, on another side was definitely playing on Saturday Night Live. Those kind of things are
so cool.
You grow up seeing all your favorite bands from the 70s all the way through on that stage, and to be on there was, I think, a highlight of when we had a lot of pop success and everything. Being on Saturday Night Live was huge. That
is awesome, man. You're originally from Canada, right?
Well, I spent the first 3 months of my life there.
Okay. And then your family.
My dad was teaching at McMaster University outside of Toronto.
Okay.
And I was the heaviest baby at the Kingston, Ontario Hospital. 11 pounds.
11 pounds. Well, dude, you're 6'5".
11.1 pounds.
Surprising, man.
No, I was a big baby. Always been a big baby. But then he got the gig at Princeton from McMaster. So I grew
Great
up.
School.
Yeah. He was a professor there all my time growing up. So the university was kind of my and the university was kind of my playground. I was a university brat. University was my playground.
Were your folks supportive of your music? Because usually when you have an academic, it's not always the case.
Without a doubt. They
awesome.
They neither of them played music much, but they were hippies from that era. So they had a dope music collection from like Led Zeppelin to Charles Mingus to Django Reinhardt. My dad was really into jazz, all the great 60s bands. So there was always a lot of cool music on. And most importantly, when we all decided to move to New York and be in a rock band, as much as they wanted me to go to university, and for both of them, they came from Waltham, Boston, and Little Rock, Arkansas.
Oh wow!
They were the first kids in their families to ever go to college, so education was a huge stepping stone for them. So for me to fuck it all off and move to New York to be in a rock band took a little courage on their part, but I think the whole band was really lucky. All our parents were very supportive, as scared as they were, which I don't blame them.
That's literally the number one thing successful musicians have in common is family was supportive. Even if there happened to be dysfunction in the family, like alcoholism, drugs, or financial problems, the number one commonality is supportive family.
Yeah. I mean, I think that probably shows, if you have supportive family, you probably have good group skill. Like you can work together in a group. And if, I think being in the band, you need to be able to fall back on how to work with people and how the interpersonal dynamics trust each other and support each other. So supportive families, I think you need to be supportive band members as well. I think that might have
that makes a lot of sense.
That might have something to do. If you're like some antisocial, you could be antisocial, but you have to have some family skills.
No, that makes a lot of sense, because everybody says, it doesn't really matter the technical skills. It's, are you a good hang? Can I deal with you the other 22 hours a day?
It's important. I mean, technical skills are important too, but.
Right, but you'd rather. But if you're the greatest technician and you're an asshole, it's not going to happen.
No.
But if you might not be the best player, but you're great,
well, you can be an asshole, but you got to also have the other side too.
Yeah.
You have to be. Well, see, for as well, you have to be open-minded and not worry about people being assholes too.
Yeah,
it goes both ways.
Any what were some of the lower points or dark periods you've had to deal with?
Well, certainly it was Bobby Sheehan passing away in 1999. I think that was, we were best friends, me and him, and we kind of built this whole thing. So, that's devastating. And at the time, I was 27, 28. It was 29, I think. 29, sorry. And that's the first, Bill Graham had passed away, but I wasn't that close with him. I mean, like I was with Bobby. So that was kind of our first serious tragedy that we'd all had to deal with. So, that definitely took a while to get over, though having my brother join the band and adding the keyboards kind of reinvented it a little bit, I think was a good way to go. So we worked through it. You got to work through it.
Any advice, if you had to go back and give a young Chan advice, anything you would have told yourself that would have made things easier if you would have listened?
Made things easier, and I certainly wouldn't have.
I certainly wouldn't have.
Should I kind of I've always kind of appreciated train wrecks and things going crazy to kind of keep life interesting. So I don't really regret much. I guess I would have paid more attention to my guitars and gear back then, because I would just grab any old thing, since this is kind of a guitar-based program.
Yeah.
Would have worked on my tone and my guitars, made sure that was a little more like what I'm working with now. I think I kind of glossed over that, and I sacrificed a little quality of tone that I'm happy I have now. So don't skimp on tone and a good guitar.
Well,
That's important.
Let's talk about it. That's a great segue. What is your go-to guitar now, and what other two guitars would round out your top three, and has that changed over the years?
Yes, it changed all the time. Back in the early days, I grabbed whatever guitar I could get my hands on. So it started out as an SG, but the neck kept breaking on that, kind of like the one looked exactly like the one right behind you. But how the neck's got that little, it's got a little angle on it that goes back. That snapped on me twice, because most guitars it's straight, but that little angle, when you're playing bar gigs and basement parties, and it's not a great feature. So then it was, whatever I get my hands on. I got kind of some different kinds of strats I could get up at. ESP made me a couple guitars. Then I got into this thing where I was playing modulus guitars, because they were giving them to me for free, which are the graphite neck ones.
Mm.
And that's where I really someone should have talked to me, because they sounded all right, but
not very rock and roll.
Well, they were all right. And then luckily Warren was playing Soldanos. So for a while I had Soldanos. I think that kind of made up for the guitars. But as of late, the last decade at least, I've been playing through a Bogner amplifier, which are perfect for me. It's got plenty of punch, but it's kind of, you can play beautiful chords as well. It's got the overtones you need. Not a cheap amp, but
no, it's not. You deal with Joe,
but it's worth it. What's that?
Joe
over at Bogner.
Yeah.
I see him. I'll talk to him all the time. That's my buddy. They always loan when I play around town in LA. They'll always give me a loaner, because mine are out with all the gear. And it's funny, a loaner and a Bogner. Those things are heavy as
Yeah, they are.
I'll bring them, but they sound so good. So I'm like, I'm not playing on freaking anything with this. So I got to cart that shit in myself to these little, bar club gigs, whatever I pick up around here or play with different friends. So it's good for me. Playing little bar gigs is great. Just to kind of make me appreciate what I have, but also make me realize that those are just as fun in a lot of ways. And then lately, the last 6-7 years, I've been playing Gibsons, and Gibson makes great. Right now, I'm playing a Les Paul traditional, but the new guitars Gibson's making, and I'm not sure quite what they're doing right this second because they're in bankruptcy, selling off the not guitar parts of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because the guitar side of Gibson's always been very viable. They just straight into keyboards and electronics and other stuff that drag the company down. In any case, they're making great guitars, or at least they have the last 10 years. So I have, they've been cool enough to give me a bunch. Yeah. But my first love as a guitar player was Jimmy Page. So I'm like, what if I get a Les Paul and just rock that? So
that's what you're playing now? That's
what I've been playing, a Les Paul traditional. The nice thing about that is it's got great for riffs, but once again, you can play great power chords. It's I do a lot of lower riff stuff and crunchy stuff, and something more in the Fender world. It's just too transparent. It just doesn't, like, when was the last riff rocker that's great for solos? But when was the last riff rocker that played a Fender? It's all that lower stuff's Gibsons or more specialty guitars. It's not good for riff rock, Fender, at least for my style. Fender's more of a soloist guitar to me.
And you never really, you go back and listen to the early records, you're not, you had wah-wah, but maybe a little bit of crunch. You never really had a lot of processing on your instruments.
The way I always looked at it is, it's first of all, I kind of like good rock, just clean rock.
Yeah, I do too.
But also John's occupying sonically an area that a lot of effects would kind of cloud up and muddy. So, and then when we added keyboards, it was even more the case, because John and the keyboards are fighting in that kind of sonic area. So for me to have flange and too much of that would just clutter up. I mean, we're already fight the mid-range. We have to get out of each other's way, be conscious of that. That wasn't the case when we started out. It was just a 3-piece and a harmonica, so it was much more stripped down. But because of that, I think I've cleared away from too many effects. And I just like the straight up rock sound.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. It's cool. And I like to hear, I don't hear wah enough. You don't hear people using wah anymore. So you go back and, like I said, I re-listened to at least the first 4.5 albums, and it was really cool hearing you're using wah and you're doing.
Yeah, well, I've always used the wah. The wah is great. And I still do to this day. A little delay. I did just get kind of a flange chorus thing for, the Andy Summers sound from the Police.
Yeah, sure.
So I'll be busting that out this summer, just because I always get a new pedal that's just for fun, just to kind of get me out of my head. And
sure.
So that'll be my new effect for this summer. Everyone will be like, and I learned a bunch of Police songs, so we'll see how that creeps into the set.
You did a really great job. That was, nobody would have known that's a one guitar band. You did and that's not an easy thing to do, to carry off so consistently.
I mean, and I think live, I look back and having a virtuoso like John fills a lot of the area for sure. Makes that job easier for me. But I think in some ways it made my soloing have to be very full and kind of aggressive, because I didn't have much chordal pad to fall back on and play. So I didn't play very melodically. It's more attack rock kind of soloing.
No, but man, you're not playing any wrong notes though, man. I mean,
that's the idea, right? Yeah. I could probably hear a few, but yeah.
I mean, you're a consistent guy, man. You got you're the guy, I need someone reliable. Oh, okay, Chan. The consistency on all your playing was very
cool.
solid. There, man.
Well, I'll take that as a compliment. I mean,
yeah, man.
I try to keep the quality up.
What you're totally self-taught?
By and large, I mean, I had my guitar teacher at the local Farringtons, and you know, I know the basics of theory, and I learned some modes and but by and large, by the time I was 17, we moved to New York, and I just learned playing in little bars and picking up little shit when I could. It confounds people, like, especially if we're in the studio and people are trying to go through, like, we're trying to build new parts and like, go A to B, you know, for me, it's all like, I'm like, well, let's take a second, you know, but I do think that makes me create a little more off the wall guitar parts, because I'm not kind of, which is my, you know, my aspect of the band. It's not all good, but for me, I think adds a little personality, because, you know, I'm not chained to, for me, it's by ear. And,
yeah, I totally get it. You're not
as opposed to like, oh, this should go to that and this should go to that. There's a lot of presupposition when you know how music's all put together, where things should go. And I'll try things that, you know, sometimes sound awful, but sometimes it's a happy accident. And the keyboard player will be like, I don't know why that works, but it works. I'm like, great. That's all I care about.
That's really interesting. I had not heard that perspective on that, but yeah, I could totally understand that. Favorite players you've enjoyed jamming with? Obviously, Warren and Carlos.
Warren and Carlos. So many. I mean, one of the greatest things was doing Horde back in the 90s. Was just all these great bands, and we would check each other out, and everyone would sit in with each other. So really, you get to bring every band you like to you to kind of spend the summer with. So those Horde tours were just amazing. And just a great segue to this summer, G Love, who's been touring with us on Horde all the way through. We're going to be out on tour with him and Mo, who's an old friend of ours. We've done a bunch of shows with them. And it's kind of in the Horde vein, where there's a jam set in the middle. So we'll come up with all kind of that show. We'll come up with all kinds of interesting, we're putting it together now, but I'm sure it'll be a living, breathing project throughout the summer.
God, yeah, man.
So we'll see. I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes.
Is there an official name for that?
Yeah, it's called the All Roads Runaround Tour. That's a hit from Mo and a hit from us, or well-known songs from either of us. But it's us, Mo, and G Love all over the country this summer.
You coming here? You coming to Florida?
We are, Jacksonville. Florida's a big country. I used to live down in Miami Beach way back. I know Florida well, which is like a whole different country.
Oh, totally.
Its own banana republic.
Yeah. Desert Island Discs, man. Top 3. No particular order, just for now.
Led Zeppelin 2. Prince, Sign of the Times. Oh, fuck. Class, London Calling.
I saw them when they
Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Ziggy Stardust. It's gonna I'll keep going, but those are some good ones.
I saw that London Calling tour live. What a great show!
Wow, awesome! I was just before my concert going time, though. I did back in the day. I saw Bowie on the Let's Dance tour a few times. Saw the Psychedelic Furs.
Was Stevie Ray Vaughan playing on that tour?
No, he wasn't the guitar player. They had who was the guy? Who's the black guy that played on Letterman, I think, was their guitarist. Stevie Ray Vaughan. Stevie Ray Vaughan was on the album. I don't know if he was out on the tour. Also saw the Police. Get this, Bill. REM on their first record, Reckoning. Madness. Joan Jett, the Police at Veterans Stadium in Philly. That's a balls out show right there.
That's a hell of a show.
I was right up front for that.
I saw REM at the Felt Forum one time. What a show. They just crushed
They were great. I mean, this is before anyone even knew of them. I only knew of them because I was a huge Police fan, and they were managed by
Copeland.
Miles Copeland. And they were on A&M. And so I was to put that whole thing together, yeah.
That's cool, man. Most important things you've learned about yourself?
God, I don't know what I've learned. Jesus.
Oh man, this is the first time you slow down, man.
Right? I don't know. I mean,
I feel like
I'm good at as you get older, you change a lot. When you're younger, it's like a shark. You keep going or the self-doubt creeps in. I think as you get older, you can kind of slow down because you kind of come to terms with different aspects. So you're not so driven to go forward. I think when you're younger, you're so driven because you're kind of afraid of, slowing down. And I think when you get older, it's nice. You become more accepting of what your strengths are, where you're not as strong, and your faults, the few that I have. And,
that was good.
I'm a good-natured dude. I get along with most anybody. And I don't like to put myself in positions where I get stressed out.
Yeah, man, that is so, for me, that has been so critical as I've gotten older, and I'm deliberately make every decision, and I almost always choose the one which is the least amount of stress.
Why
it's automatically the right one.
I mean, if there's something you have to deal with that's a family emergency or that's stressful, that's whatever.
Sure. Absolutely.
But your day-to-day decisions, if somebody does something and you're like, that's what you start doing when you get older. It's like, you know what? I don't fuck that. I don't like going to little afternoon mixers where everyone's like chit-chatting. It's just not really my thing, So I'm not going to go. I'll want to go to a museum or go on a hike or hang out and watch a movie. I'll do that, but those are just excuses to party for me.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, man. Minimizing stress is so important, man. It's just, you realize why would I, you realize you're responsible for some of the stress in your life, and you're like, fuck that.
Of course, you make so many dumb decisions, and but I kind of miss some of my energy from my youth of doing, like, getting after stuff. I got to force myself to, because especially when you're in a band, when you're off tour, you got to plan your day. You got to self-plan your day, manage your day, or you can just sit around all day doing jack shit. So it's,
are you good with that?
I'm okay with it. I'm very good at sitting around all day doing jack shit. I enjoy that thoroughly, and there's no stress. So yes, things are working out well.
Oh my God. Something about yourself people might be surprised to hear or find a little odd. You look a little bit like Yorma, man. Didn't anybody ever tell you that?
No.
From this angle with the beard and everything. Yeah.
That's surprising about me. Well, I'm a huge nerd, and I love gaming, Dungeons and Dragons, strategy gaming, go to Strategicon. My kids are huge nerds. But I find that most musicians that are good at their instrument, they have a nerd aspect, because, I would run home from school just to sit by myself in my room and practice scales, figure out songs and be by myself playing guitar, which is very nerdy behavior. So I really am a huge nerd deep down.
Happiest moment or time in your life?
Well, obviously the kids is an amazing thing. I think when I first moved down to Miami, we had just made a ton of money, and, happiness was just kind of a realization of moving on. When I had my first child, just got married, just made a ton of money with 4, had a sweet house in Miami on the bay. That was kind of like the dream come true. So that was a good couple years down there in Miami. And, with your new baby, it's kind of like the baby bubble and a new marriage. So I think that was the most kind of romantically neat time. But I've just been spent the last, 6 months back here with my 15-year-old in the Ultimate Man Cave, our place here. So we've got 2 giant flat screens in the living room, so we can game for gaming.
Oh, that's so funny. So you seriously are a big gamer.
Well, I mean, that's a great way to bond with your 15-year-old. I don't know any other way to do it, apparently.
Yeah.
But no, I love video games. I mean, on tour, you play, it's a great time killer. But yes, any kind of gaming. But so this last 6 months with my kid has been terrific too, and I can't, I try and appreciate, I think as you get older, you learn to appreciate things a lot more, because how rough things can get, or how tough other people have it. You've heard other stories, so I think I've learned to really appreciate when things are just quiet and good, and you're doing good things, being creative, hanging out with your kid. taking a nice hike, taking care of yourself, little things like that, I think mean a lot more as you get older.
Favorite place you traveled?
Back when the kids were young, we did a couple great family trips down to the Yucatan Peninsula.
Sure.
Me, the wifey, 2 boys, and we would just road trip all around the Yucatan for a couple of weeks. We did that twice. Visiting pyramids and cenotes and living on like the beach in these funky houses we'd find online, and those were great times. So the Yucatan, I always have a fond place in my heart.
Man, 3 questions left, and I really appreciate it.
No problem.
Tell me about a specific experience that changed your life or changed the way you think about things.
I mean, sure, kids are probably obvious, and just trying to come a piece to see the thing that pops in the mind the most. I mean, I remember a day when we had been pushing so hard. We lived in this crap hole in Brooklyn, and we slowly moved up, and I got this apartment up in Red Square on the Lower East Side, famous building with the Lennon on the rooftop and that fucked up clock down on Houston and Avenue A, right in that corner there.
I know exactly.
And I had a balcony that just looked out over the downtown skyline, back when there was a World Trade Center, the 2 towers.
That's right across from what's that place there?
Ludlow Street Cafe. Ludlow. It's right across from Ludlow Street. Like I could see from my balcony. I'm up on like the 14th floor. So I kind of gone from the bottom to the top, but this is right. And we have been driving 5 years of touring, all this stuff. And you know who lived directly above me? It was Warren Haynes and
Get
Stephanie,
out. Yeah,
his girlfriend.
Right.
Yeah, they lived directly 1 floor above me at Red Square.
That's cool.
So
that's really wild.
So we just got home and Runaround had just hit, and I like finally got off the road and like I was like, holy shit, you know, because it's always nip or tuck when you're the band before that. But I'm like leaning out, looking at the thing, and I'm like thinking right at the time, I was like, I think I just made it. And then this girl that had been with us from the beginning was actually at Stephanie's house, and she was right above me. She's like, "Hey, Chan," you know, like I look up. So that's a moment I'll always remember. It kind of meant that it's time to look forward. Like I made it.
Yeah.
The struggle part was winding down. There's always so much more ahead, but it's kind of an end of an era, beginning of another. And I got married and had a kid pretty soon thereafter. But I'll never forget that moment. That's
nice, man. Russ and Daughters. That was the place I was thinking of.
What's it called?
Russ and Daughters is right across the street from there.
Oh, really? Was it a bar or is it
no, it's like
a restaurant? A little
like bagels and like
yeah, because right at the other corner was a famous delicatessen.
Katz's.
Yeah, Katz's was right there. I can see that from my balcony as well.
Right. That whole area. That's so funny, man. Toughest decision you had to make or most difficult thing you had to do?
Toughest decision I've had to make. Shoot, life's full of them, I guess. Well, I mean, it goes all the way back. Tough decision I'd make. We moved to New York for 1 year, and I had put off going to school up at Colby, just this elite little liberal arts school up in Maine. I put that off a year, our first year in New York, and after our first year in New York, not a shitload was happening. And I'd always planned to go up to Colby then, and the band's like, don't go. And they were thinking of maybe getting another guitar player because Bobby and John and Brendan wanted to stay. And I was like, well, I was committed to go up there. I was going to play football up there. And then I went with my buddy to a friend's college. And I had lived in New York for a year and we played all these, shitty little gigs all around town. So then I go to the Rider College to some dorm and I'm down in the basement partying with a bunch of people. And I look around, I'm like, this is going to be my next 4 years? And I was like, fuck that. So I went home, told my mom, fuck it, I'm not doing it. I'm staying in New York. And that's a big crossroads in my life. But,
yeah, man.
I just looked around. I'm like, I can't do this. You kidding? Can't leave this all behind. And by all this, I mean living in a shithole fighting for Cheetos.
Yeah, but it was it was, you were doing what you wanted to do. You were
Yeah,
doing
of
something
course.
that made you feel. You're probably looking around that room and like, you're not thinking about the Cheetos. You're thinking about, man, I'm on stage. I'm hanging out with these great guys. I'm playing music, or I could sit here and study and have a drink in the night.
Yeah,
it's
that's exactly it.
yeah.
Just wasn't my bag anymore. It was too late.
But I give you a lot of credit though for having the kind of like the clarity to think that thing through and not get all emotional about, and to not
let my parents down. And then,
yes. Yeah, that's
especially coming from Princeton, it was, going to school was what everyone did.
Right. And especially
and
having parents with educators. That's
the funny thing is then I ended up just transferring to NYU where I went. So I'm like, what's the big fucking deal? I could have just always gone to school in New York. Why? Like, it was like, that was another path. It was, once I decided I was to stay in New York, and we're like, well, what about NYU? And so I ended up going to NYU. I'm like, why was this such a hard decision? It was funny.
It's funny, the things that you don't. Yeah, I know. You know what?
And then by a semester in NYU, we were playing gigs every night for my midterm. So that didn't last long, but it was a good start.
Do you remember Pizza Box right there on Bleecker?
Sure. Yeah.
It's gone, man.
They're all gone. What just closed the Lower East Side was Jaffa Cafe.
Yes. That's about 3 years ago it closed now. Because I went with my wife like 4 or 5 years ago, and then we went the next time. I'm like, holy shit, it's gone.
That was one of the first kind of funky restaurants in the Lower East Side. Like that was like the early bastion of people cool places taking back the Lower East Side, which in the 70s was just a hellhole.
It was really bad.
And it was one of my first places. I was dating this really gorgeous art student, and she'd been in New York a year before me. She took me there, and I remember sitting there drinking iced coffee for the first time and watching all the freaks walk by with this gorgeous girl. And I'm like, man, I am fucking cool as shit. I am the man.
Outdoor, you could sit outside.
Yeah, that's where I was sitting. Do you
remember the only
at the Jaffa Cafe?
That's
another moment. I'm like, you know what? Kids got it going on.
I've made it. Good for you, man. The only bad thing, the fucking bathroom there was like, you better not do anything but stand up and pee, man, because there's no room to do a damn thing else in there, man. That was so funny. And dude, last question. Biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years, and how much of that has been intentional and how much is just a natural change due to age?
Biggest change in my personality. I mean, I think I'm a lot less judgmental, and I'm a lot more forgiving of people now. Everyone's got their hang-ups, me included.
Sure, man.
And, as I was younger, I'd always be like, oh, I'd never do that, or God, I can't believe they do that. And now I think I'm kind of a little more understanding of there's a lot of things driving people that I don't understand. So I try to let, as long as they treat me and the people I care about right.
Sure.
And even if they don't once in a while, I'm a lot more forgiving of that. And I think, it's made life a little richer.
Less stress too, man.
Yeah. Once again, far less. Just worrying about other people and what they do is stressful.
It is. And it's totally irrelevant. It's like I always say, it's like worrying about the price of lettuce. What the fuck?
And when you're younger, I would always lie in bed at night. I'd be like, God, I can't believe I did that. Or I can't believe I said that. And now I'm like, God, typical that you did that and said that, because that's just what you do. Yeah. You don't sweat it so much.
Well, dude, I've really enjoyed talking to you. I'm so glad that everything's going great for you. You're a fantastic player. You've done everything.
Thanks, brother.
Some wonderful music over the years, and I really thank you for that. I mean, really good music. I vibe totally with what you're playing, man.
Thanks, man. Well, this has been a lot of fun. I love talking about the old days. So
very cool.
That's been a blast. And
everybody, please check out Chan on the tour. It's called the All Roads Runaround Tour this summer with Mo and G Love. And I would imagine this is going to be on the website, on the Blues Traveler website.
There'll be all kinds of info about it.
Great. And anything else you want to promote, or anything else you want people to be aware of or get hip to?
Hey, man, rock and roll.
Rock and roll. There you go. Hang on. Let me just wrap this up. Everybody, thanks again, bro. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share it on your social media channels. We appreciate your support. Subscribe to the show and check out the YouTube channel. Thanks again to Chan Kinchla for spending time with us. Man, what a catalog. If you're not familiar with Blues Traveler, I would highly encourage you to go back and start with the very first album called Blues Traveler. They've put out just an incredible band. I'm just phenomenal catalog of music they've put out. Really good blues, old-fashioned rock and roll, and Chan's a hell of a player. Make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com, sign up to get on our newsletter list so you and I can connect. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. And thanks, Chan.
No problem.